thanks for joining us for the fourth in this series of our Lunch and Learn webinars. We've had quite a journey going through the first three and got lots to share with you today. So let's get straight into it and talk about today's final topic. So marketing automation and unique customer experiences. The idea of this session or this webinar was to kind of bring together all of the thinking in relation to the first three that we ran. So the first thing I want to do is just quickly give you a little bit of a summary of those, but also make sure I introduce to you the folks who are with us today. My name is Derek Bell and I'm the host today, but we have Adrian Jones, who is the CEO and co-founder of Marketing Cube. Welcome, Adrian. Good to have you with us.
Hello.
And we also have Daniel Harrison, General Manager of Customer Experience at Oracle. Dan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invite.
You're welcome. It's a bit like full circle, right? You joined us for the first one, all about leads.
Yes, I did.
You did, so.
My favourite topic.
Yeah. And then my name is Derek Bell, Customer Success and Marketing Director here at Marketing Cube. So if we look at it from a bit of a story so far or a summary of events so far, as we just mentioned there, the first session we ran this year was all about leads. Certainly did at the heart of most salespeople and obviously most marketers as well. So there are a number of things that we discussed in the course of that particular session, but essentially we really focused on things like quality versus quantity, understanding your buyer's journey, managing leads, especially in an omni-channel environment. I remember there was some discussion around that. And then certainly from the marketer's point of view, it was really about being the hero that sales need you to be. Not just simply sending through names, but actually sending through really good marketing qualified leads in that journey. Then following that, the second webinar focused on the marketing automation lessons learned. And so what we were trying to do here as Marketing Cube was kind of share with you some of the experiences and observations we had learned over the last 10 or 12 years of working with predominantly Eloqua customers as a part of the Oracle Marketing Cloud. So the key things that came out of that session were very much around defining your marketing strategy, getting executive support. It's critical to sponsor the project or implementation of your chosen platform, getting IT and sales involved early. And Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but in a cloud-based environment, it's been so much easier now for marketing to just take off and acquire technology without IT.
Very much so. It's a kind of a double-edged sword. It gives the marketers much more freedom, but it also disconnects IT a little bit. So I think points of making sure both sales and IT are involved in the marketing automation project is really key. Sales, from a point of view, you need to have marketing and sales aligned, but IT because you need to get access to more data. And I think for me, data is really part of the key, and we'll talk more about that later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was certainly one of the lessons that we've learned over the years as an organization. The other key thing was that starting small is not a bad scenario. You don't have to boil the ocean from day one. And we've seen even in some of our larger clients where it may even come down to a department that chooses to implement something like Eloqua. Everyone else is looking over the fence like, oh, wow, hang on a minute, that's pretty cool. Okay, can we do that? And so, so it becomes an easy extension then from there.
And the cloud makes it easier for an organization to do that, to start small, invest a smaller amount of money, get some early wins, some quick wins, and then build off that success.
And then I think the last point, which goes back to your data comment, was you've got to get your data in shape.
Totally.
Yeah, sometimes I hate to say it, but that can sometimes be as drab as horrible Excel spreadsheets, but hopefully we have smarter and more sophisticated ways, but sometimes that's as nasty as it gets. Then the third webinar in the series was very much around design for automation. And so this was actually a phrase that you coined, Mr. Jones, wasn't it? So we were chatting a while ago now, and you spewed these pearls of wisdom, and we thought, hang on a minute, that's good, we'll run with that. And so what it came from was appreciating that in the process of designing a campaign that was using marketing automation, that the constructs of what the marketing automation platform could do were being ignored in the design process. And so we're delivering a sort of a binary experience when it could be an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And so that's what design for automation was all about. And so it underpins that concept of a much richer experience, also understanding the importance of metrics because we can track just about everything. So setting some goals and really understanding what that is. Personas became obviously a big part of that whole design for marketing automation because we can personalize. We've got an example today with a newsletter that will show you, that shows some examples. Same newsletter, but different audiences and slightly different content. based on who they are. And so again, that design for marketing automation process. All right, so let's move on.
Thought we would really have a look at how we would facilitate unique and unique customer experiences. It's easy to say, right? But actually develop something that no one else is doing, leverage everything that you have to deliver a really unique CX is actually quite a tricky thing to do. And the first thing we had to look at is how do you start that whole process? In my opinion, it really starts with your marketing strategy. I think it's your brand and even why you are, but who you are. How are you representing yourself? In this context, how are you representing yourself digitally? So, not every brand is Harvey Norman. Not every brand is Dan Murphy. You have to think about who it is that you want to be online and then make sure that is the experience that you're going to deliver. And then the other part is your goals and what it is that you're trying to achieve. What's your differentiation and how are you going to leverage that differentiation in your marketplace? So, a good place to start with that is an assessment. It's really developing your understanding of your customer journeys, developing your understanding of your assets, your data, and your content. It's understanding the tools that you have and their capabilities. I saw a little meme with a sort of a cart and horse and saying, your tools define you. And if you only had a cart and horse, that's the only way you could get to work. It's kind of like, it's a bit like that.
Unfortunately, it's often true though.
Yeah, right. And then I think it's also some skills and maturity of the organization, where they are, maybe the leadership team, your own team, the resources that you have. So all those things will define what you can do today, the best that you could do today. What comes next is really what's the plan, and we kind of call this now really a marketing automation strategy, and that's the plan to help you define what you'd like to be able to do in the future and how to get there. So that then becomes, okay, I've got these gaps, I've got these things that I need to understand. How do I fill those gaps? How do I cover that off in order to be able to deliver the sorts of experiences that I want to be able to deliver?
So for me though, it all starts with that data. I'm an old techie at heart, an old DBA, so it all starts with data and goes from there. If I look at organizations that I've spoken to in the past, and I've been in the CX industry for about 15 years now, what we've seen over that period of time is data silos are starting to form across a business. It's got a little bit worse as it's become easier for departments to start to take their business processes and put parts of them in different technologies. But what that's done is created those different data silos. So the data from sales is different to the data of service, which is different to the data of commerce, different to the data of loyalty, and then ERP, and all of a sudden you've got this mishmash of data. So if you don't understand what that customer is and who that customer is and what their interests are and what their interests are not, it's hard to then personalize that experience. And so for me, I like to look at how do we start to bring that data together and get that holistic view of a customer. And everyone's always looking for that golden customer record, and I hate using that term, but it is kind of true. But it's more about sharing the data across those different areas. I think once you do that, you can then start to be able to enrich and personalize that experience based upon what we know about that individual.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key questions that does come up frequently around data is how clean does the data have to be to even get started? Yeah. So it's just like, well, I'm waiting. I just want to clean the data up before I can take the next step. There's some merit in that. Obviously, you want to get it as clean as you can, before you put it in to create your first sort of centralized database, if you like.
Yeah, the problem is though, if you wait for it to be clean, you're going to be waiting forever.
Right.
And so it's
no such thing as the absolute perfect data.
Exactly, right? And the data's always changing. So you can't go through this continual cycle of washing and cleaning and bringing it all together before you start using it. So I think you have to have a balance between getting clean data and bringing it together and making an advantage of it. So I think to the point earlier, you need to look at what the strategy looks like in line with the data as well. So what kind of experience do I want to give to the customers compared to what data I have about that customer?
And I think it's also about looking at what you want to use that data for.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're using the data to do some segmentation yourself, then you can go through and go, okay, well, clearly there's some things that need tidying up in here before I finally use this for my campaign. And then there might be some base sort of hygiene. So, we're going to finally take the epic step of moving away from dear valued customer to dear first name, then we want the first name to be right.
That always helps, doesn't it?
Right? So, yeah, so there's just like, maybe that's just a hygiene and how you do that.
It goes back to the example I was telling you earlier before with my son's school. They sent me an email yesterday, and obviously they were using some kind of mail merge. And they went, "Dear Harrison, thank you for being part of this community." Well, what about my first name? That's always a nice one to use, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I think going beyond that, the technology and using marketing automation just rapidly enhances the quality of the data. So that's what we see. Like with customers that have started to deploy marketing automation platforms, we see rapid growth in terms of their overall contact database. And then they understand who's engaged and who's not, who's active and who's not, and also start to build that profile of the data so that they can do more with the information. So I think it kind of really changes as that develops and they can use that data more. And then I think the more advanced customers are looking at that data strategy and going, okay, what do we need to know that would help us to provide a more unique experience? What is missing, or what are those nuggets of information that if we could find out would really help us?
Yeah.
Not like, oh, they're going to buy tomorrow. I mean, obviously everybody wants to know that, right?
That's what's happening.
Yeah. But more like if we understood this about our customers, we could really personalize their experience. Or we know that customers that have these certain data attributes tend to buy more, convert more quickly, engage more, always renew, good opportunity to cross-sell from this to something else. Those types of data attributes are really valuable. What's interesting as well is they don't always have to come from a marketing form, right? I mean, they can get from other parts of the organization.
I was about to say the exact same thing. So one of the things I always like to ask customers that when we start having that conversation is, what other parts of the organization are collecting that data? Are you getting that from your customer service team? Are you getting it from your sales team? Is it the right place to ask that kind of question in a marketing form, or should your sales team who have a relationship with that person be asking that question and then feed that back into marketing?
Yeah.
So there's always more than one way to collect that data.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're going to move then on a little bit towards and talk about newsletters, because newsletters interest me in that most organizations have a newsletter. Most organizations have a lot of newsletters, and they kind of become a bit of a foundational communications piece. But what's quite interesting is really defining what they are. What I've found is that a lot of newsletters seem to be quite multi-purpose and quite generic. And one of the things that we are working with a lot of our customers to do is to try to make that a little bit more defined. And I think that starts with kind of trying to understand what the purpose for that newsletter, what it's actually designed to be doing. Is it lead gen and lead nurture? Is it to drive customer engagement? Is it for channel communication? And really sort of what do you want people to do next? What's the call to action from the newsletter?
Yeah, very much so. If you think about the newsletter, I mean, the newsletter started many, many years ago before really marketing automation and data collection was really all that critical. And it was just, I needed to get information out there. I didn't know much. I couldn't personalize it all. So I just sent out everything I could and hoped that the newsletter would actually hit the mark. Now with the ability to collect some data, understand a little bit more about the behaviors, the intent, and the type of customers you're engaging with, you have the ability now to be more personalized and targeted with that newsletter. So I don't have to send you the rugby newsletter, you've made that rugby 10 times when you're not interested in it. Right?
Yeah. Exactly. The other context for a newsletter as well is almost like that cold nurture. It's kind of that baseline where somebody's not really engaging with you right now, but you wanted to keep them aware of what's coming up. If they can subscribe to the newsletter, keep that newsletter going, it gives you the opportunity to put some things in front of them that they may then engage with. And if they do, then obviously you can lift that up to a warmer nurture around a specific product or service. There's a good example we had yesterday when we talked to Canon, actually, the customer of ours, and they have a structure where they have 3 components to their newsletter. They have 3 core elements. One is pretty much is personalized based on where the person's come from, how they've joined the newsletter, who they are. The second part is pretty generic, so that's not normally a thought leadership or some experience or inspirational piece. And then the third component might be more product specific or lead around a service. So just those three components enable them to have that flexibility, and they use that as kind of almost a standard template that they can then flex depending on personas and industry. So
That's pretty cool.
It's a clever structure.
I tend to like what some of the universities are doing and how they're starting to blend their newsletters, their communications with their students back to different channels as well. So connecting it back into the contact center, either through student recruitment or student retention activities, and building the communication so that the student retention officer is giving the same message and a consistent message as what the newsletters and what the marketing activities are communicating. So we're starting to see that convergence of sales, service, and marketing together into a uniform customer experience.
And I guess that comes back to that data layer. So you can see how you can personalize that experience a lot more if you've got those data points.
We've got an example to show you with an email that we do. It's a subscription service only, generally, and it goes to Eloqua customers, whether they be Marketing Cube customers or more broadly Oracle Marketing Cloud users of Eloqua. And it really just it goes through all of the updates and sort of tries to filter out what we feel are the most important things that customers should be aware of. And we'll just show you how we use some dynamic content to sort of tailor each of those same core email, but in this case, it's really just the introduction and positioning that changes. So let's have a look at this example newsletter. And there are sort of three examples here, and what we've done is highlight for you the audience in question. So the first one went to all of our customers. The second one is, so this is prospects who are using Eloqua, but they may not be Marketing Cube customers today. So what we're doing here essentially is just using some dynamic content to deliver slightly different introduction, which is basically saying, hey, look, if you're one of our customers, this is all the great information that we try and share with our customers to keep them as up to date as possible with the platform. And then this past month, so this was actually the July edition of the newsletter, we tried to also target people who we knew were using Eloqua, who have opted into our communications, but weren't specifically subscribed to this one. So the primary objective was to say, hey, here's an example of what you get if you subscribe. And so we might touch that audience once every 3 to 4 months. So they haven't subscribed, so we don't force it on them every month, or it's actually a fairly irregular email. It's about once every 2 months, really. And this particular month, I think we had about 300 people in the campaign all up. And I think we picked up about 25 people who proactively subscribed.
That's good.
So just by asking the question, right? Yeah. So share the content, help them see what the experience is. And there were 25 net new subscriptions for us. So it was great.
But it goes back to your point earlier on defining what the strategy of the communication is, the strategy of the brand is, and what is the call to action behind those particular asks.
And then are these presumably going to a form with are they progressively profiled at this stage?
There is progressive profiling on that particular form. So yeah, it's just a form on our website that anyone can find if they sort of drill around a little bit. And all of our forms pretty much have progressive profiling. I mean, I feel bad for our customers who are often registering because I'm not sure what else we can ask them. we're going to move into eye color soon. So
for the audience, do you want to give an update on what progressive profiling is?
Yeah, for sure. The way I think about it is in the context really of like the LinkedIn, your percentage of profile, your percentage of completeness. So if you think about the database as all having kind of a percentage of completeness, what you're really trying to do is ask the next best question that you can. So what we know is that conversion rates on forms after 5 questions, I think, drops by about 50%, and it's ridiculous. So, and then it's every other question you ask after that, it gets worse and worse. So really, we're trying to ask a minimum number of questions. But given that we only have that number of questions, what's really cool about progressive profiling is being able to alternate or rotate those last questions and prioritize the ones that you need to know next. I remember working with an automotive company quite a long time ago, and they would keep asking the same question over and over again. It went back to that rugby thing, right? So it was just like, okay, eventually it was getting to the point where you go, well, then the customers are sitting there going, how many times do I have to tell you that, I like rugby or I like cricket or whatever it is, and
still ask the question. I told you I like rugby.
Just send me tickets to the rugby.
You're at the other end of the spectrum where you're going, eye colour.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed.
Yeah, exactly. That does give the ability then to start to build up like a really deep profile on your customers, and you're not asking a lot of questions each time. And you can also play a little bit with questions that are mandatory and non-mandatory. So it's surprising how many people will fill in non-mandatory questions. They seem to not necessarily, worry about the asterisk after a certain number of questions. They go, okay, this is fine, and then the question then is, it comes down to that equitable trade of your time and your effort in filling in the question for what it is that you want. So if you have an event, your VIP event, whatever, and you're going to get dinner and all that kind of stuff, and there's going to be a good group of people there, and there's going to be a great speaker. You go, okay, well, I'm prepared to answer a few questions about my company and what we're doing, because that's to be expected. So that's a fair exchange. Whereas if for another situation where it might be the opportunity to subscribe for a newsletter or something, you might not say that I'm not going to answer a whole bunch of questions before I subscribe to the newsletter. You might get a couple of pieces of information. So it does come down to how much can you ask and what's the right time to ask for that data. But you can certainly build up a very rich database.
It's one of the cool features of Eloqua. I don't think customers are really taking advantage of it as much as they could. We keep talking about, I think for me, data is key. And being able to just really get to the questions that you haven't got asked or you don't often ask, but you want to get the information for, is really valuable to an organization. So for everyone who does use Eloqua out there, I would strongly suggest you keep looking at it, keep looking at ways that you can integrate progressive profiling into some of your web forms, get access to more of that data to personalize further.
There's also a bit of a misunderstanding, often a misunderstanding on the structure of the same form can be used in multiple places for progressive profiling. So I think a lot of people see the form as being separate for each location. So they go, I've got a form on this landing page, I've got a form on this landing page, I've got another form for this event. Quite often you can make those forms the same basic form, but only show the fields that are relevant at each time. So that simplifies the whole process. And in fact, for some people that have been using Eloqua for a long time, they end up auditing their forms and going back and saying, can we rationalize this? Because we've created forms that are easy to create. We've created these forms all over the place. Actually, it'd be much better if we consolidated that down. I know you certainly found that with some customers.
From an attribution point of view, as things change, it's much easier to manage a dozen or a couple of dozen forms than it is potentially hundreds of forms. But templates is another solution that you can very easily template the form construct within Eloqua. So you can have an event or a PDF or like a white paper download, different types of forms templated, which helps.
That sort of also leads on a little bit to that designing for marketing automation, because the template's sort of at the heart of that, and how the form's going to look, for example, on a page or where you're going to put it.
It's a key call to action when you particularly start to do events and stuff like that. And I kind of need to register for the event, don't I?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But thinking about that across maybe all of your assets is kind of a good example of how you might design something specifically for automation. So you don't want to end up having to do a different template or a different email or a different landing page for every event or for every communication. And so thinking a little bit ahead about, okay, how would I tailor this email, or how would I tailor this landing page? How can I personalize it more? And then what elements am I going to use? You can kind of come up with a better design to cater for those changes and almost say, okay, well, maybe there is a structure. So a little bit like the 3 core elements of a newsletter, that's an easily modularized process. And similarly, you could do the same with other emails or with a survey or with an event.
So that does allow you then to start to really blend that entire customer experience as well. Because if you think about it, we're focusing on the marketing conversation at the moment, but there's sales and service that also touch that same customer in different parts of the life cycle. And so then how do we then blend what data we need to pass to them, or what data we need to collect from them, and how do we then use that as part of that design thinking? Becomes really important.
So then I think move on to how do we measure this, or what can we measure as a result? So hopefully we've moved on from the more leads, the better. The old, how many leads are produced? How many leads do I need to hit my target?
Over quantity.
Exactly. So But there's also, and then there's indicator metrics, and you can use those to really help you to make some decisions around where you need to focus your time and your energy. So it might be, around your overall database health. So, looking at the total population, your total digital subscription community, the total number of people that you can talk to. What do you know about them? What don't you know about them? What would you like to know about them? How engaged are they? I mean, maybe you haven't been sent an email for a long time, or haven't been asked a question, or haven't engaged in anything that you sent. They're all things you could start to say, well, okay, how do we re-engage, or what do we need to do differently to kind of engage a big segment? And often we do it again, talk to customers, and they might have tens of thousands of customers that kind of haven't done anything for a long time. They go, well, how do we change that? Maybe it's even through a different channel. But I think it does definitely start with kind of that database health and engagement. And then you can step up and look at kind of what's driving conversions and your campaign attributes, and looking, again, preferably not too much on open rates and a little bit more onto engagement and click-throughs, and really what's working and what's not. Get a bit cleverer about attribution and what was the intention of the campaign and how do we apply that.
Well, we looked, it's funny, just this morning, as everyone on the webinar would imagine, we were looking at who's registered to attend today, and just looking at the raw data that comes out of the form. From an attribution point of view, it was really interesting for us to be able to look and see the actual email, because as you would imagine, there were multiple emails inviting people to attend. What was really interesting was to be able to look and see the email that actually closed the deal, so to speak. Yeah. So which email? Yeah, because there's a strong naming convention with the sequencing, so we can see that it was email number 2 or 3 or whichever one it was that clenched the deal that actually got somebody to register. And so then for us, it'll be about going back to that campaign, having a look at the content, have a look at the flow, and compare that potentially with the other webinars. Just then refine the process for the next time.
I see 2 points there. Firstly, I think when we start looking at KPIs, particularly around campaigns and stuff like that, we need to look at how does that align to the rest of the organisation. So we talked about in the first webinar around is it quantity versus quality, and I gave you an MQL, but it was rubbish MQL, that kind of conversation. But that's really important, getting that sales and marketing alignment, because there's no point in me saying I achieved my KPI if the downstream effects are negative. Yeah. And so aligning those 2 KPIs is really important. And then in the macro environment, looking at what is the KPI or the reason for the campaign. Is it a top of funnel campaign? Is it to start to drive some engagement? Or is it mid funnel and driving that progression through to a sales rep? And then aligning those specific micro KPIs around the outcome or the objective of the campaign itself.
Yeah, I mean, that comes back, I suppose, to people's response in that little poll we did earlier about why they're using their segmentation. So do we just send everybody everything in the database, but it looks like people are doing some segmentation to drill down to get an appropriate audience for their appropriate message. Yeah. It's about how easy that is for them, I suppose.
Yeah. I think it's also about having a very clear idea of what that KPI is and how the campaign you're running is going to influence that KPI, because often that link's not there. It's not very clear. It's like, we do a lot of marketing and hopefully the KPI changes. As opposed to this campaign is specifically targeted on lifting engagement in the consideration phase of the customer journey. That's all it's about. Might do some other things as well, but that's the reason that it's there. And as a result, we've seen this. And then I think you need to have that process that is in place to review that. So you can go back and say, we've got a positive result out of that. We carry on, we'll do more, or we need to change it and see how we can do it better next time.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's okay. That's going to happen. You're going to make a change and it might not lead to an improvement. But, unless you understand what the impact of the change has been, you can't decide whether or it's been or not.
It's an interesting point you raised. So you talked about what is the reason for the campaign. Everyone thinks that I do a campaign and I generate a sale out of it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that granular. It can be moving people forward in the funnel. Yeah. And so once you start to think about that, you can then be much more targeted, tailored, and then you can understand and define what success really looks like based upon that. Yeah. Not just, hey, we generated more sales out of it.
Yeah. I mean, getting 10 or 15 high quality individuals to a webinar like this versus say 300 who may not even be able to spell marketing. I mean, surely your smaller, targeted, high-quality group is obviously the objective.
Exactly.
So the next thing we wanted to look at was, and we promised we would do this, we'll share some specific customer success stories. We've got 2 examples that we want to share with you today. And the first one is from beautiful regional New South Wales with our friends in Newcastle from NIB. So Adrian, you just recently caught up with the guys there, didn't you?
Yeah,
You talked to this one.
they've really made some great strides. And how long have they had?
Oh, it's about 18 months, 2
18 months,
years.
maybe 2 years ago. But really, the thing that I think they learned quickly, and we learned from them, was really that focus on continuous improvement. And so they have taken that they already had a very strong test and learn culture, but applying that to their marketing automation, they've just had amazing results. And it's been the smallest things. It's been the layout of the form or the frequency with which they were sent, the topics that they focused on. And so really just changing those incrementally over time, they've actually driven better and better results from their lead nurture. So really it's all about, their focus has been on acquisition so far, on driving this quote conversion.
Yeah.
There've been some huge changes in that health insurance in that landscape. So there's been some reforms, and so it was about understanding what impact they were going to have. But really it's elevating that position from being kind of a health insurer to being somebody that helps people to manage their health. And so they've also seen that brand pickup driving significant results as well. So if we combine that with the ability to be able to produce a campaign much more quickly and more independently, they're able to be, they're able to react a lot more quickly to what's happening. They're able to be more timely and more relevant. And so, it's really been kind of interesting to see how far they've been able to drive the platform.
I love that last point. When we were talking to them in their evaluations stage, I don't think IT believed us when we said, it doesn't require a huge amount of IT expertise. We need obviously IT's help to set up and bring the data together, but once it's together, marketing can get on and do what they need to do. So I'm really happy to see that they've lessened their reliance on IT to get access to that data. That's pretty critical for them.
Absolutely. We've actually got a case study that we've done with these guys in concert with Oracle.
Yep.
So we'll make sure you get a link to access that case study, guys, once we edit this particular webinar. So another one that we wanted to share with you is with a brand that you may or may not be familiar with, but you're probably very familiar with one of their major products, which is Luxaflex. If you're sitting in a corporate office or even at home, chances are you might have some Luxaflex blinds keeping the sun out. Although today you probably want the sun coming in, here in Sydney at least, to keep you nice and warm. So Adrian, what was the background with Hunter Douglas and this particular case study?
So I think they recognised early on that they needed to get an understanding of their end consumer. So I mean, they are often, when you go and buy your window coverings or blinds, you might go and get them from a retail outlet, and sometimes of varying sizes, but the relationship is really then with the retail outlet.
Yeah.
But more and more people were going to the key websites. So what they were interested in doing was really understanding that. And the end of that journey, once you bought your blinds, is that they're all tailored and they're all very much specific and unique to your particular, windows, whatever. And so there's a time to manufacture and a time to deliver. And so that the journey just didn't end with the sale. It wasn't like you bought your tomatoes and you went home. You were buying something, then there was more to that. And often as well, there was an opportunity to do a lot more with that customer. So they might do one room, and then want to do the rest of the rooms. Or they might start with basic and then go up to want to have automated later. Or they might not have an awning yet, or whatever. So there was much more opportunities to have a relationship rather than a kind of an in and out of a retail, in and out of a shop experience. And so they wanted to really start to understand those consumers better. At the same time, they're really supporting the channel, because when you go to their main website, they actually have co-branded sub-microsites for every single retailer. So you go off to the retailer of choice. So they really support the channel by helping those leads to get to the channel and then to continue to communicate, or to have the ability to continue to communicate with those consumers right through the customer journey, from the time they were first in lead to the time they go to the channel, to post-order, to when the delivery is expected, to after the delivery, are you happy, to did you know we do this as well?
Mm.
So that whole customer journey then was an opportunity. So
Because that last point, the improved loyalty from the dealer network, that came about, didn't it? Because previously the dealers were cautious to send people off to the main parent brand website, because what guarantee did they have that they would in fact come back to them? So with some changes and then those microsites and everything that you described, that then sort of stamped in the system that if I went to that particular dealer's site and made an inquiry, I was forever stamped. I had that relationship now, both with Hunter Douglas and Luxaflex, but with that partner, that dealer. And so I didn't get farmed off to somebody else necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly right.
I really love this example. It's from Oracle Marketplace, one of my favourite ones. See, we talk a lot about Woolies and Jetstar and those kind of, they have big marketing budgets, right? And they also have a lot of direct-to-consumer access. But Hunter Douglas is an example of, really good example of where we've done some creative things with an organisation who traditionally has distributed through a third party, but still wants to keep that connection back to their customer. And so using technology, co-branded webs, I love the microsites that are co-branded. I think they're awesome. And it's showing support for the partner and for the organisation as well, but it also allows them to keep connection and access back to that customer to get that upsell and that cross-sell later on.
I mean, maybe today's not the day, time for another webinar, but then it's also about those reviews, that other campaign that they ran with the Google reviews, isn't that right?
Yeah, so they did an integration with Trustpilot.
Trustpilot,
And that was really amazing. So they had some people that had, I think they had Google reviews, which were being just done by people randomly.
Probably by competitors, right?
Whoever. But it wasn't really being managed. So the integration with Trustpilot meant that they could ask all their customers to participate. And obviously then they have a great product, they have really high 95% positive reviews. And then that became a huge selling point and ability for them to say, look, just have a look at this in your decision-making process. It was just a great reference point. So completely turned that around. And it was great that was something that was easily integratable and an experience that they could make pretty seamless for their customers.
Alrighty, we're coming to the end of our final webinar for today. So hopefully we've delivered on your expectations, what was outlined there. But if that is in fact it, I think, Dan, thank you so much for joining us in this series.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We're pretty pumped to keep going with this format, I think. We've had some great feedback from people that liked it, whether we do podcasting maybe as well for people. There's all different ways you can engage. So thanks for making some time. Appreciate you've got a pretty busy day out at Oracle today, I think, haven't you? Yeah.
Back in the office.
Yeah, right. We've got a chopper outside.
I wish.
And of course, thank you, Adrian. And thanks everybody for making some time to join us today. And have a great week, and you'll hear from us shortly. Thank you very much.
Thanks.